What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? I see you already jumping in. Let's see. What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? I see you already jumping in. Sorry about that. All right. Devin, Tyler, Miss Titus. Miss Titus, I appreciate you sharing everything as well. All right, y'all. We're gonna jump in right now to an interesting topic, an interesting set of issues, if we could say that. I haven't really done much on this type of thing, but I think we all saw it at the same time on the same day, and we're like, I saw the chat. I was like, hey, let's knock it out. We don't want to just be one-sided in our addressing of truth and trying to bring truth and clarity to the worldview that we espouse and the worldview that I believe is true. So let me say this real quick before I forget. If this is your first time here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell so that you never miss another video, another panel, never interview. I got some new stuff coming that I'm working on. And let me just say this too. Our goal here, my goal with this channel is to help everyone enter into a confirmed, confident, and eternal relationship with the source of all life and purpose. With that being said, let me just, y'all have seen the thumbnail, so you know what we're going to get into. Before I even get into that, let me just have my panel introduce themselves so you know who we've got with us tonight. Ladies first.
Lady, immutable. Good evening, everyone. It's good to be here tonight. It's kind of weird being on this side of things, Alex. I'm usually in the live chat or watching you later, but it's cool to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit about what you do, and it actually is pertinent to tonight as well.
Well, what I do online is I am a moderator for all of you guys. But yeah, online, I just do a lot of moderating of the Urban Apologist. And in my real life, I work in the medical field. And so I know a little bit of what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Amen. Amen. And my brother Quentin, how you doing?
I'm all right. What's happening, y'all? My name is Quentin. Most folk just call me Q. I live out here in Omaha, Nebraska. Married, wife, 2 kids. Second child is brand spanking new, like a few weeks old. Still got the brand new baby smell on them. But yeah, I am a coordinator, leader for discipleship at my church out here in Omaha, Nebraska, where I currently live. And my interest and focus, I guess, for tonight will really be pertaining to issues of discipleship. So more so along the lines of how we as believers should think about these things, some of the implications for discipleship, negative, etc., so on and so forth. So yeah, that'll be kind of what I'll be bringing to the table tonight. I'm really interested and excited to hear what Dinu has to say, because I know this is right up her alley. So I'll be sitting and listening, soaking it all in. I'm sure she got some really great insight and input for tonight.
Amen. I'm excited too. Sorry for those that I missed in the chat. I'll try to get you as we go. So here's the thing. I don't know, this is probably about a couple months ago now. Queen Afua and her son were on the Breakfast Club. Everybody pretty much knows the Breakfast Club by now. And just listening to some brief snippets in the beginning, I think we all got kind of troubled by some of the things she was saying, either from a factual standpoint, from a philosophical standpoint, from a scientific standpoint, from a discipleship standpoint. And so we just want to, as is always the case, it's not a takedown, but we do want to bring truth, clarify some things. And let me give some props first before we even get into that. Queen Afua does make some good points. So if you did see it, or if you were going to go back and watch it later, I'll try, if I remember, to link back to it later. But as far as eating right and not, binging on fast food, we're on the same page. And I look, I don't think you have to be a guru to know that. There is benefits, obviously, to eating right and to getting the right amount of greens and vegetables and that type of stuff. She and her son have worked together on trying to help women and men become more holistically well in their mind, and their body, and soul. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing, especially husband and wife, to have that synergy, for men and women in general to have that. Where we where we do depart is, how do we understand spiritual things? And is everything spiritual? Doctors will tell you, hey, this is the right nutrition plan, or this is the right thing you need to do for your body. But is eating the right thing a magic thing that heals everything about you? Do you really have the power to heal yourself just through your coming into yourself and eating the right things? And so, because of this kind of rise in New Age spirituality, which she's not really espousing that, although Kemetic ideology does sound very familiar, those components are very attractive now. So we just want to kind of bring some truth out and look at some components. We're going to play some clips from that interview so everybody can see it. So actually, with that being said, let's jump into the first clip and go from there.
This morning.
Yes, indeed.
We have Queen Afua. Did I say your name right?
That's absolutely.
A master holistic healer and herbalist. And you have your son. You brought your son with you.
Yes.
Supernova Slaw. Welcome, brother.
Good morning, brother.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Don't forget polarity practitioner.
Okay.
What could you explain to the people what that is, Queen Afua?
That's one who works with the energy field and primarily with the elements. We're made up of 5 elements: ether, fire, water, and earth. And so I'm able to focus in on those elements to heal the body.
Okay.
And the body is made up of nature, and nature, those same elements in nature is in our body. So when we're lacking that balance, then we have disease.
So how did you get to this point to be a healer? What got you here? And tell us your story.
Sure. I started age 16. I was extremely sick. I was eating the all-American fast food lifestyle diet. And I was asthmatic, chronic. I had eczema from head to toe. I had PMS. Every month I would be bedridden as a woman. And I had headaches. Those were things that were going on. And I didn't know how to get out of it. And I went on a healing retreat. It was a 3-day healing retreat at that young age. And I got off the bus without my medication. And the grass, the trees was like an enemy to my body, but I didn't know that I was just so out of tune. And so I went into the space, and the asthma kicked in. The allergies kicked in, the eczema kicked in, and I was like a junkie. I was toxic, really. And I just heard that inner voice talk to me for the first time. We all have it. And it said, my first formula, eat grapefruits, lemons, oranges, and I took some rose hips tea and water. And that whole day, that's all I did. And then I sat up in front of a fireplace, because if I laid down, my lungs would have collapsed. So I sat up, and in this fireplace was part of the medicine. It was the heat from the fire. I fasted for the whole day. The mucus that was breaking up in my body was the asthma. The next day I had a detox. I learned these terms later on, and I had a detox. The mucus came out of my nose, my mouth, my eyes. And then an hour later, the itching stopped, the asthma stopped. My mind went to total balance, and I picked up a book. I came out of that bathroom, and I picked up a book, Dick Gregory, Cooking with Mother Nature. I related to his 9 children, the husband and wife, a family who was healing, detoxing, fasting, and I jumped on it because that was the end of my asthma. That I went up to the mountains, and it was the end of my asthma, and I never got it back. So 50 years later, no asthma, no allergies, no aches, no pains, all that had left me. And then I just helped everyone I could meet, because I said, you don't have to be sick. I was convicted. And I went throughout my community with that same energy and started to talk to people in the street, in my family, anyone who would listen, because it's like I was saved. And I said, why are we suffering due to a lack of knowledge? So I began to teach and educate, became holistically focused.
All right. So, who wants to jump? Well, let me start with this. The elements, right? The ether, air, fire, water. I don't know why I start thinking about Power Rangers.
I started thinking about Earthbender. And I was thinking about Aang, the last Airbender. That's what I thought thinking about.
Let me just clarify some stuff. Now, y'all know, if you've been watching me for any amount of time, a lot of my apologetics is scientifically focused, just because with a lot of young people I talk to, that seems to be an area of contention or struggle. And, you know, we've had Dr. Rana on here, Dr. Ross, I had particle physicists. I've had all these different people to show us, to talk to us, more so to debunk atheism. But it works here too, that we're not made of fire. We're not made of ether or air or whatever she said. Now, let's get some statistics. So I was looking at some stuff earlier from the Davidson Institute of Science Education. They have an article titled "The Body's Elements." And the human body, just for clarification, is mostly made up of water. We all, I think, pretty much know that. The organic molecules include mainly proteins, mostly carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, some sulfur, some selenium. But here's the thing: 62% hydrogen, about 24% oxygen. That makes sense because there's 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen, so it should be roughly that double. The sun is 91% hydrogen and 8.9% helium. One of these things is not like the other. You know, this is not what we are. We are carbon-based life form, sentient beings. Dr. Rana, I was pulling a clip earlier. He said, one of the features of systems that are the result of a mind is they display optimization. When we look at biochemical systems, they are astoundingly optimized. The genetic code is exquisitely optimized, so much so that it's difficult, if not impossible, to explain how it could have just come into being. So random codes don't come into being. And actually in the lab, when scientists have tried to replicate what could have created the amino acids to even get to DNA, to get to protein, they can't do it. And so there is no components of these amino acids in the sun, or really anywhere else. But even if it was, if you took all of the carbon in the universe and allowed it to react at the most rapid rate possible and left it for, you know, 1 million years, the chances of getting one functional protein molecule, I think it's like 1 in 10 to the 60th. That's if you get lucky. And one protein molecule is not life. But to say the sun has 0 protein molecules. So this is just factually incorrect. Let's start there and let y'all jump in. Just what did you think when you first heard her? I don't know. She kind of described polarity practitioner. I don't know if you want to get into that, but what else did you see in kind of the intro there?
Well, I thought some of the same things as you as well. Like, I don't understand how we can be made of fire and not combust at some point if we also are made of air. So that was somewhat confusing to me. The logic just didn't follow from that.
Right.
And as well, you know, just like, as you were saying, in terms of scientific wise, we do consist of some elements, but it's not those ones. It's the ones on the periodic table, right? And you already mentioned that. So
yeah,
I think so. One of the things that I noticed in her in the beginning is the way in which she draws the audience in through her story, right? So, you know, this is something that I think a lot of us, sometimes we can underestimate, you know, is just the power of telling a compelling story. You know, of course, you know, none of us were there when she was 16. You know, I'm sure she's, you know, condensed and kind of sharpened her story over the years, for it to be concise and for it to kind of hit all the right heartstrings. And I think that that in combination with the fact that, she just kind of goes one after the other. I mean, she literally is like shotgunning you with a bunch of stuff at once, from being, made up of various elements to coming in line and balance, and then the inner voice, and you just kind of like, whoa, time out, slow down.
Matter of fact, Charlemagne said that one time. Like, he said, look, you came in with the chopper, we need you to back up.
yeah, and I think so. Like I said, I think that in combination with her ability to like tell her story and weave that in, makes it very compelling for those, who really don't think critically about these things. And I think apologetically, we have to really we have to point that out, right? To say like, look, people are going to say some things that sound really nice. They're going to say some things that touch on some emotional points. I can imagine, I try and put myself in the shoes of, like, say a woman, kind of her focus audience, who's, in pain and suffering. She's talking about menstrual cycles and things of that nature. And a woman who's vulnerable is like, yes, I suffer all those same things. And, it can be very compelling and draw someone in. But of course, as we've already talked about, and we'll continue to demonstrate tonight, these things don't cohere very well, and there's a point later on in the interview where DJ Envy asked her a question that hopefully we'll touch on tonight. But again, I think in someone telling their story and telling it in a compelling way, just kind of disarms people, apologetically and philosophically and just critically, really, to say, oh, wow, that's awesome that she, got off the bus and she sat in front of this fire. And I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe that's true. I mean, I don't know. I can't refute your story, right? I wasn't there, but we can still, tackle it, pretty critically and expose many of the errors and the things that she's talking about.
Yeah, and I mentioned at the beginning, this sounds very much like some New Age stuff. It sounds very much like some Word of Faith stuff, right? There's some similarities in all of these worldviews or ideologies. And I think you hit on one, which is the power of story. There are some very charismatic speakers in Word of Faith. Matter of fact, that's how they get to be how they are. There's some very charismatic New Age speakers or gurus or writers. And, we are humans who enjoy stories. The reason the movie industry exists is that, right? So we got to be careful. And my ministry, Proof for the Truth, is concerned with that alone. I always start, especially if I give a talk, like, is there such a thing as truth? If there's not, then we don't need to even, if everything is subjective, then do you. But there is such a thing as truth. There is such a thing as objective truth. And what we don't want is this over spiritualization of her products and her processes to lead people to believing something to be true, even if that part of it works. But if it is the fact that, like, these optimized cells that compose us are the result of a mind, I want to know who that mind is. And we believe that mind to be God. And if he has evidenced himself in the earth, and we believe that has happened, and he's the truth, then truth is a person. And so I don't want to be a healthy person in hell. I want to be healthier day by day. But first and foremost, I want to know the truth. I want to know the source of truth, and I want to be in line with the truth. So those are some of my thoughts.
I just want to very quickly just piggyback on what you just said, because, it is clear from her intro that she does have a heart to help people. I think that's obvious. And you know what? I don't doubt that she has helped people.
Yep.
But as you said, it's also unfortunate that what she's doing isn't grounded in what we know is the truth. So amen. I just want to say that, she is clearly concerned about her community. She is clearly concerned about people living well. And so we don't, it's beautiful and amazing to see.
Yes, it is. It is. And like I said, I might take, so we got to know how to eat the meat and spit out the bones, right? There might be some shakes that she can recommend. It might be good for my health. That's as far as I'm going with it, though.
You need some of that cleanse over there, Doc. Something to clean you out.
Clean me out, right?
Right.
All right, let's go to the next clip here.
But if woman's not going to be complete unless she has man heals thyself wellness warriors. So I said, well, okay, Noah, you got to, it's time to come on up with man heals thyself wellness warriors. And so now we've observed the difference when a woman is in a happy home and when she's in a stressed out home. She can do all the cleansing in the world, but if her mate is toxic and he's angry and he feels like he didn't live out his pure destiny, she's going to have a problem. And she's going to fall off and she's going to fall out again.
Yeah.
So by shoring up the family, you have a healthy woman, empowered and strong and loving. And you have a healthy man, empowered, strong, and loving. You bring that together. They birth organic, healthy children. We create a new world.
Can we discuss fertility for a minute also?
Thank you for pulling me all the way back.
She came out of nowhere.
Whoa! Okay, yeah, fertility. Fertility is a lack. Infertility is a lack of oxygen.
But I think she had. You have more to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because that's been a topic that has come up a lot with my friends lately. I've had friends that have recently frozen their egg. Also, people who are doing IVF. And I want you to discuss fertility, how that relates to detoxing diets and things that women can do, and family planning in general.
Well, one of my specialties is womb wellness, sacred womb awakening. So I teach women how to use the elements to preserve and repair the uterus. Because if you're infertile, most of the times you're bleeding a little heavy, or you are suffering from pain, so your uterus is constricted. And I was a colon therapist about 15 years back in the day, so I do believe in keeping the colon clean. The average woman carries 5 to 10 or more pounds of impacted waste in her colon. The colon over time then becomes heavy and prolapses, so it should be above the navel. It drops under the navel, and when the colon drops, because you had 3 meals a day, but you only have 1 bowel movement for the day. So that means at the end of the week, you should have 21 meals, basically, then 21 eliminations. If you have only 1 elimination for the day, you have 14 meals backed up in your colon. That's when you get 5, 10, 15 pounds of impacted waste. Now, that waste drops under the navel, sits down on your bladder, so you have frequent, uncontrollable bladder urination. Then you have the colon and the bladder sits on the uterus, crushing the ovaries, the fallopian tube. Now, you got to clean all that up. So now the stomach is not flat for aesthetics only. It is flat because it needs to have no impaction, but because we're eating emotionally. Most women are eating emotionally. If a date didn't happen, if things didn't work out, she's eating the foods that she was raised on that did not produce wellness. So she has a lot of congestion in her uterus. So I'll give you a few things to do for her. One is to take red foods into you. That's the red element, the fire element. That's the blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, strawberries. To take that as a blend with pure apple, make 2 or 3 apples, juice them, because it moves the body from an acid to an alkaline state. Take that juice, put the berries in it, and it becomes a delicious drink. That helps to clean out the bloodstream. When you're infertile, you have a weak blood. Also, you're clogged up. So clean out the colon, take the okra, take your flaxseed, take your sea moss, take your water, we're dehydrated. The other elements, so you have the fire. What poisons the fire? The quickest way to poison the fire is meat. So start cutting back. You may not be 100%, but then just have chicken and fish organic and stay away from the beef, the pork, the goat, the lamb. That's a beginning step, transition in. Everybody's not going to be plant-based, but you can incorporate plants into the lifestyle. So that's the fire. So let's go back to air. There's not enough oxygen in the uterus. There's not enough oxygen in the bloodstream. So you have to increase your live foods. So I want to say, big it up to Tom, because he brought the live food about 40 years ago to our community. So sun food. Sun food goes into the plants, give it the photosynthesis, it gives us the green. The green is the greatest healer you could take in to actually rejuvenate the uterus, the bloodstream, the nervous system, the brain. So to be fertile is to have a fertile lifestyle, a lifestyle that gives you energy and vitality. So let's get to the oxygen. Take in 2 salads every day. Add 2 avocados. You want to regulate your colon? Take 2 avocados in a day. Your waist, our waist is coming out scanty. It should be the length of our hand twice, wrapped around. So then you have that backup, and the bacteria is coming back into the bloodstream, poisoning the bloodstream. Okay, so we have the air, take in live foods, have a fruit bowl every morning, have a vegetable juice. A green juice is power. I've been watching, you've been taking
she's been taking some greens.
I'm so excited every time I see with the green juice, because that for me is life itself. And even during the coronavirus, they told us, get sun, get the vitamin D. But when you get it in your foods also every day, you have supernatural energy. All right, you've tapped in to the resurrection.
You know, in the book, you talk about the gateways of initiation, and you talk about sacred.
So basically, I need to go sit on the toilet a lot more.
Dinu, I'm gonna let you jump in here because I know you wanted to address this.
Quentin, sitting on the toilet is good. There's more to life. Anyhow, so I'm going to be talking for a little bit here, okay? Because when I got to this part of the interview, I was confused. I don't know what it is about, with all due respect to the conscious community, I don't know what it is, but there seems to be this level of inaccuracy when it comes to biology or biology-related things. And for the life of me, I don't know why the misinformation isn't being corrected. Certainly we see it with people like Polite and Young Pharaoh, hashtag parthenogenesis. And unfortunately, though, we are seeing it with Queen Afua. And so with all due respect, and I mean this earnestly, with all due respect to her, I just want to correct some of the things that she said, because there is some misinformation in here. So Alex, if you can, do you have those diagrams that I sent you?
Oh, no, I don't.
You don't? Okay. Is it easy for you to get them or no?
Yeah, let me see.
While Alex is grabbing those, I'll say my little piece so Dinu can pull full steam ahead once those diagrams come in. So one of the things that she does, and it's at the very end of this clip, but she goes into it several times later on in the interview and the discussion, is she's talking about, eating the right type of foods, the effect it has on the body, how much better you'll feel, that if you do these things and you help others in your household to do these things, you'll feel better, your household will overall feel better, you'll be healthier. Okay, sounds relatively good, right? I'm sure there's some error in there, and that's where Dinu is going to come in. But then she makes this very subtle turn into the more spiritual dynamics of things. And the thing that I think, and this is for our viewers, obviously, that, and us too, but the thing we have to ask ourselves is, okay, well, how is she making that connection? Right? Like we have to interrogate the fact that she makes that connection. It's just assumed in her worldview that by eating these foods, by drinking these things, it's going to allow you to feel better physically, but that there's also a spiritual element to this. Like, what's the evidence for that? What's the link there? How did you get there? A question from I believe it was Greg Kokel's book, tactics, you talk about, how did you arrive at that conclusion, right? Like interrogating someone's assumptions and their line of thinking. Again, it's very easy when she's kind of just going nonstop and just talking and making all of these connections to not say, okay, well, how did you get there, right? And again, I want to talk about later on. I mentioned DJ Envy asked her a question, but I think he does it in the interview. He kind of short circuits, her rambling, and he asked her a very simple question. He's like, well, how was it that who to trust, and how is it that who is for real? And she's kind of like, well, you guys just ask for your testimonies, and you should go on your intuition. And I'm like, nah, that ain't it, But just again, and listening to someone, like her, again, she does care about people. She cares about, folk in her community, which is commendable. But again, you can't just make these connections and not really explain and elaborate how you arrived there and expect people to just buy it hook, line, and sinker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. And that intuition piece, just go on your intuition, that cuts both ways. Because what if my intuition says you're wrong? Is it still true?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I got you here, Dinu. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I just like to have visuals when we talk about these things, so you can see that I'm not lying.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm ready to go. You have all three of them. Okay.
Yep.
So here, and this diagram is a little bit widened, but you guys can get the gist of it. Here we have a diagram of the large intestine. Okay, the large intestine is also called the colon. This portion of the interview, Queen Afua is referring to a specific segment of the colon. She's referring to the transverse colon. And so I just want to go through and explain very quickly some of the anatomy so we see what she's talking about. Okay, so very quickly, the colon is divided into segments. You can see on the right side of the person, not your right side, you have the ascending colon, okay? The words are kind of juggled there, but you can see the ascending colon aptly named because it ascends up, it goes up. The ascending colon then curves and becomes the transverse colon, spanning from right side to left side of the abdominal cavity. Then it curves again into the descending colon. And then it becomes what's called the sigmoid colon. It kind of takes on this S-like shape, straightens out, and then it becomes the rectum. Okay, so again, the crux of her information is going to be centered on the transverse colon. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so this diagram here displays what we just heard from Queen Afua. Actually, both of these diagrams come from her book. Okay, so these are her sources. Okay, so let me just restate what she said, and then we can kind of visualize it as well. Okay, so basically what she said is that when a woman doesn't have an elimination or a bowel movement after every meal, that what can happen is she becomes impacted. Okay, she says that this can happen over a period of time. Okay, very quickly, what is impaction? Impaction is when your stool, a bulk of stool, becomes so dry that you can't pass it. Okay, basically it gets stuck, for lack of a better term. Typically this happens in the rectum, but really it can happen anywhere in the colon. And so again, Queen Afua is saying that it happens in the transverse colon. Okay. So she says that the transverse colon becomes so impacted with fecal matter that it gets heavy, and that its normal position is to be above the navel. But she says because of the weight that it drops below the navel and sits on the bladder. And then she says that then the colon and the bladder prolapse onto the woman's uterus, crushing the fallopian tubes, crushing the ovaries, And that is what leads to fertility problems for that woman, okay? This is where I'm going to be saying a few things. So can you please go to the next slide? Okay. So this is a 3D image. Obviously, we're not seeing it in 3D because we're looking at a screen, but because this is just a matter of anatomy, let me just go through very quickly. I'm going to talk about two organs first right now. If you see right here in the pelvic area, you're going to see two oval-looking organs, right? If we're going from top to bottom, there's a lighter pink. What is that? What, sienna? I don't know. Light pink oval organ. That is the uterus, okay? And then underneath that, that red-looking oval organ, that's the bladder, okay? So again, from top to bottom, we have the uterus and then the bladder, okay? If the statement is made that the bladder prolapses onto the uterus, as it was made here, that statement is simply incorrect, okay? The urinary bladder in a woman sits below, and you can't see it here. If we had a lateral view, turn this woman on the side and look at her from the side, we would see that the bladder sits below and partially in front of the uterus, okay? An organ doesn't prolapse onto another organ that's above it. That's not how prolapse works. Prolapse is when an organ either droops or sags or falls, descends from its anatomical position to a lower position. And so being that the bladder is below the uterus, there's literally no way for the bladder to prolapse onto the uterus. Prolapse is downward, not upward, okay? The next thing I want to address is the statement that the colon that becomes heavy with impaction sits on the bladder and the uterus. Okay. Unfortunately, the diagrams that we saw from Queen Afua's book, they were missing the bladder and the uterus. They were also missing the small intestine. So again, we will go to this diagram. You guys, I just explained where the uterus and the bladder is. Hopefully, you can recognize the colon. Okay, if you see on the right-hand side that light pinkish, I don't know, is that sienna? I don't know. Anyway, you can see that the ascending colon, okay, and you see it curve into the transverse colon. The descending colon, you can see, is kind of hidden by this light pink looking thick wormy structure. That is the small intestine, okay? So as we see here, the small intestine is largely, remember, we're three-dimensional, okay? I just want to point that out. We're three-dimensional and we're looking at a two-dimensional. That's a little disclaimer, but largely the small intestine is located inferior to the transverse colon, okay? It sits underneath it. If there is going to be a prolapse onto the bladder, remember the bladder is the red oval organ right on the bottom, okay? If there is going to be a prolapse onto the bladder, it won't be by the transverse colon because we see that the small intestine is this angle is a little bit off, right? And it's the screen has widened a little bit. But in real life, this small intestine is located in a space immediately superior to the bladder. And so if there is going to be a prolapse onto the bladder, it's going to be by the small intestine, okay? And so to say that it will be by the transverse colon is really just showing, with all due respect, that you're not aware of female anatomy, okay? Let me also say this. But let me say this. If we go with this scenario, okay, so even if it was possible for the transverse colon to become this heavy, and in fact displace the small intestine so that it sits on the bladder, let me just say, you have a serious GI problem on the hand. Serious, okay? GI, gastrointestinal. And I assure you, I'm not a betting woman, but let me just not involve money, and let me just assure you that the uterus and fertility will not even enter the conversation at this point. It won't. The doctor in front of you is going to be wanting to deal with a transverse colon that's touching a bladder. Okay. And you have something to say? Sorry.
No, I'm saying that makes sense. So you're basically saying if that situation were to be able to happen in a human body, you got bigger problems than
bigger problems. Yes. And then lastly, let me say this, because I think that this is the major point that addresses her major point. A transverse colon that hangs in the way that Queen Afua is indicating, it's not abnormal. So here's the thing, when we look at diagrams like this and the ones that we saw before, any textbook, any image, yes, you are going to see a transverse colon that looks more or less horizontal and maybe has a little bit of concavity. But if in real life you were to open up a human body and look at the abdominal cavity, what you will see is that it's absolutely normal and it's absolutely common for a healthy and a non-impacted transverse colon to hang in the way that she's describing, below the navel. Surgeons and doctors will tell you this. Ask a surgeon, ask a doctor who's open to someone up, and they will tell you this. And so to refer to a colon that hangs like this as prolapsed, as if that's not a normal anatomical position, and to say that it's due to impaction is simply incorrect.
Man, we got a whole biology lesson. Thank you. Wow.
So Dinu, where do we send the tuition payment?
I'll talk to you offline.
Yeah, I think so to Dinu's point, right? Like, so then the question is, what's the implication and what's the result for a young woman who has become captivated and infatuated with this methodology that Queen Afua is espousing, right? A woman who is perhaps experiencing infertility, who has tried all kinds of different things, just like golly, I forget the young lady's name that's on the Breakfast Club with them. It was right on the tip of my tongue.
Angela Ree.
Right? Yeah, Angela Yee. Yeah. So yeah, like she says, she knows individuals who have frozen their eggs and have tried IVF treatments. What would you recommend, right? So these individuals may sometimes be in desperate kind of attitudes and dispositions, and so they're like, well, I'm going to try all of this. But the sad thing is, the individuals who try this, it won't help the infertility, and then it'll also just be ridiculously uncomfortable, like with regards to the rest of their body now. And so again, it's very important, and see, this is why when it comes to discipleship, why it's very important to not only teach individuals, believers in our church communities, what to think, but how to think. That's one of the great disservices that we can do when it comes to discipleship. That's sudden urge. But yeah, this is why it's very important to teach people how to think. Like, that should be very much a part of discipleship, as much as teaching sound doctrine, biblical practice, etc., so on and so forth, so that when we come across these things, that even though they may not be tied to things like the Trinity, and understanding what salvation is, they are important for teaching individuals kind of the brain exercise and exercising that brain muscle on how to think and how to interrogate different worldviews. Because again, if someone encounters Queen Afua and is captivated by what she says, not only will they perhaps take in some of these dietary practices that she's recommending, but also even the spiritual components that she's suggesting to go along with it. So it can definitely open the door to some things there.
And I think that last part you said is the slippery slope. That, look, facts are facts, right? And that's why I personally, I like talking about the scientific evidence. The way my brain works is I was always good at math, because 1 + 1 is always 2. It don't change. Like in English class, what do you think the author meant about this? And it's very subjective. And I never did well at that, because that's what I think. I mean, how are you going to tell me I'm wrong? But the reality is, and I wouldn't have known that prolapse and the direction of the position, but facts are facts. Mm-hmm. So now, as we tried to say before, and I hope if anybody's still listening on that side of the equation, we're not debunking her, but she's not a medical doctor. She's not a biologist. That's just a fact. And so there's sometimes that we have to know when we're out of our depth. There's a reason D-New's on here tonight, because I'm out of my depth on that level of understanding the anatomy and how things work and the terminology. I'm okay with saying that. And so when somebody is not probably out of the goodness of her heart trying to help people, but you went too far with it, and then on top of it, you throw the spiritual component, but the spiritual component is on top of something that's not factually true. So now we're off in two different directions. Now I want to talk about something else she said.
Can I just add? I just want to say too, when it comes to infertility, there is a plethora of reasons why women are infertile. Not many. You don't know that you're infertile until you can't have the child, right?
Right.
And so to attribute it to attribute in the way that she's doing here, to attribute infertility to this specific issue. My chiropractor could say the same thing. He did tell me the same thing. He's had cases where he's made just certain adjustments in people, in women who were struggling to have babies, and he's made adjustments and they became pregnant. And so, fertility is not this monolithic thing.
Right.
And even if, and this is obvious, but when you don't know what causes, when you attribute infertility to any one of these things, you have for everyone that you can attribute it something to, you have a woman who's been told, we don't know why. There's so many women who don't know why they're infertile, and it's just not happening for them. And so, just to, it can be, obviously, maybe anecdotally, this is working for her, right? For the people that she sees. But for the people that don't come to her, there's a plethora of reasons why they're not able to get pregnant. I also want to say this. Sorry, I'm just thinking. Do you want to talk? Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. But let me put this up, because it kind of this is what I was going to say, and this goes to what you're saying, that this is why we had to address this, because even though she has a good intention, the end effect is, how does this woman feel when even Afua's method don't work for her, the doctor's method don't work? Now it's my fault. Now it's, I'm a flawed woman, or and that isn't, and I can't, I've never been a woman, obviously, so I can't internalize that, but I can only imagine how painful it would be, because all of this becomes so works-based. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if your works don't work for me, then it's my fault, because you helped all these people, right? Mm-hmm. So go ahead.
And I've personally dealt with females who, believe me when I say, have experienced the utmost trauma in the past, currently, and probably will continue unless Jesus delivers them, who, to be quite honest with you, are fertile being, the most fertile beings that you could ever see. You know, women who give birth while they're high on crack, right?
Wow.
Not even realizing that they're giving birth. I'm not making this up.
Wow.
And so to say that, you know, to say that trauma, that it's trauma and hurts and things like this that lead to a sick womb. Well, I've seen women who are doing all of that and are fertile as ever. And so, you know, I think that you're going to run into problems. Anytime you make these broad generalizations, you are undoubtedly going to run into problems every single time, because someone is going to fall out of those parameters. You know, girls who have never been through the trauma that she's talking about have periods that last for more than 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
They do. And as well, if we want to bring this up, in terms of fibroids, we know that fibroids are, there's a higher incidence of fibroids in Black women than there is non-Black women. But if it's the case that, you know, bleeding for 5 to 6 days or menstrual pain, if those are the indicators for fibroid development, well, non-Black women bleed for more than 4 days too. Non-Black women have painful periods too. So then you would expect to see the same incidence, but you don't. And so again, the logic just doesn't follow. You're always going to run into problems when you apply a broad stroke to an area that you can't.
Absolutely. Look, I want to say one thing. That's not funny. But then I want to have you, Dina. I need you to clarify one more thing because you need to remember. But that was my thought. As not being a woman, obviously, I struggled, as I always do, with the logical inconsistencies philosophically, right? That how do you explain women with perfect wombs who have been abused, might still be in abusive relationships, but they're also healthy, physically healthy, or women who have been divorced repeatedly and have no problems having babies, right? Perfect reports from their gynecologist too, and all of that. No, they don't have fibroids, don't have anything like that. So there's no way to give a playbook that works for every woman, as you rightly align. On the same line with the men, because at the beginning of that clip, she talked about, you know, you get the whole woman and then the whole man, and once they're all both whole, they come together and make a whole baby who's perfect when they come out and perfect till they die, right? That's never happened in the history of humanity. Even if we take all the Kemet people in the history of the world who have ever lived, I don't care how good of a person a woman is, how whole she is, how whole the man is. They never had no trauma. That kid that comes out is a whole different human being. Genetically, spiritually, oftentimes emotionally. So we can't make this like we're gonna create a, you know, like it's almost robotic. Like we're creating this little army of perfect people by doing these certain practices. And I think as Quentin said, as you said, you're setting people up for something that's simply not logically consistent and not logically possible. And when it fails, and this is why I say with New Age, with Word of Faith, all of those things, when taken to their logical conclusion, fail. And when they fail, they're coming after you, they're coming after God, or whoever the leader was, because they're gonna feel victimized and they're gonna feel like they wasted time, money, energy, effort, resources. And the truth is they have. Now, once again, we're not saying she's never helped anybody. And I believe she's helped a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the reason is because if she can teach people how to have a better diet, that is going to help people. That, of course, it's going to help people. There's a whole field of nutritionists based on that concept. So we're not denying that. We're saying keep it in its box and don't take it out of the box on this next clip where we're going to go as far as the over spiritualization. Now, there's one clip I did not include where she does talk more about fibroids and stuff, and she says it's hardened mucus.
Crystallized mucus.
Crystallized mucus. So can we just have one more biology lesson? What actually is a fibroid medically, scientifically?
Okay, so a fibroid is not made. Okay, so let me just tell you what Queen Afua has said, not in this video, but in other places. She said that fibroids are crystallized mucus, and she seems to, I don't know, a lot of things seem to be due to mucus, okay? But to answer your question, what a fibroid is it's a tumor, non-cancerous, but it is a tumor. It forms when the muscle cells in your ovary, they divide more than they should. So fibroids are made out of muscle and connective tissue, okay? And they form in the walls of the uterus. I don't know if you played this clip, but she had indicated that you can pass the fibroid. No, you don't pass fibroids. Now, it is. Let me say this. It is not common to pass fibroids. Okay. Fibroids either get smaller or they get larger. Now, if you're talking about fibroid rupture, that is something totally different from passing fibroids. Fibroids can be within the layers of your uterus has a thick muscle layer. And so some fibroids can form within the muscle layer. And so that's not really going anywhere. They can form other places, but to answer your question, fibroids are made of muscle tissue and connective tissue. And also, let me just say this, they have a blood supply and they have a nerve supply. This is why they hurt women, because there's a blood supply and a nerve supply. Mucus is a secretion. She's going to have to explain how a secretion that's not tissue acquires a muscle supply and nerve supply.
Interesting.
I think she gets that I know I've heard that whole mucus piece from Dr. Sabi as well. He was big on that. And Dr. Sabi is he's passed away, but is also a big role model and someone that people look up to in the conscious community as well. So yeah, when she said that, I said, oh yeah, that sounds real familiar, the whole mucus thing.
When I heard that, I was like, you can have a hyper lot of things, right? Hyper charismatic, hyper anything. We now have hyper mucus in effect. So
yeah, and we need some hyper Kleenex too to combat that jank.
Oh Lord, that was funny. All right, let's go to the next clip, and then that's the last one. Then we got one more short one right after that.
Words and sacred foods, all stuff that you've been describing now. Mm-hmm. How does that lead to healing, and what exactly are those gateways of initiation?
There are 12 of them. Mm-hmm. I'll just briefly go through them because the last one is what women are really coming for now, which is the last 5 years. I saw a major shift. They want to have their own businesses. Okay. If you don't find what your purpose is, you will never be satisfied with how much money you make.
Agreed.
You have to know why you came on the planet, and then how to bring that to life, and then how to get paid while living out your real destiny. Now that takes some elevation out of the toxic way of thinking. What you speak, you create according to our ancestors. What you think, you create, and what you take in the body, you create as a frequency. So that real discipline is what we need to have in order to go into our supernatural state. Anybody could take this book and transform their lives. Even men have taken this book and they're taking portions out because it was really written for both women and men initially. So in the first gate is Newt. Newt is about wound healing. So if you have fibroids, cysts, heavy bleeding. Now, men have to go into that because if she's sick, her womb is sick, he's going to have a problem. Because it's not just in her physical womb, it's in her state of mind. When she's sick in her womb, her mind is not well. When she's sick in her womb, her heart is broken. And you could be the best man, but she's carrying 5 relationships from her past, still holding on to that. And that's impacting her present state of being.
Wear you down.
So you got to clean up all those 3 states in order for her womb to be well. So I talk about that in the gateway of Newt. Newt symbolically is over the planet, according to our ancestors and this light. And when the sun goes down, eat life-giving light foods, cooked by the sun especially. And that's called the 12 hours of the night. It's just one of them. The 12 hours of the night is the when you eat foods from the sun all through, or you're resting and you're drinking water, lime tea. When you wake up in the morning, you have another level of awareness. And you can ask any question in the universe and get an answer. Right? So, and now healing the womb, I have 25 womb rejuvenation techniques. One of my favorite juices is the womb fruit julep. That's the blueberries, raspberries, blackberries with the apple pear juice. So in other words, everything we're eating should have a purpose. You shouldn't put nothing on your body, nothing in your body unless it has a real purpose, because it's going to create your life. So that's new. So you learn that. Then the next one is Tahuti. Tahuti is about hekaud. Watch your words. When I realized the words was going to kill me, I will check my thinking. Because before you form a word, you have a thought. That thought is what people come in, curse you out with. What was I thinking? What was I feeling? How was I hurting? Because the people coming in are showing me the words I've been thinking and feeling and speaking. And that's a hard one, because sometimes we said words that was told to us as children. And we grew up with those words as teenagers. And then we grew up as women or men with those words, and we curse our children. We put our men down. We beat ourselves up internally. So we have to shift the words. And so we affirm that in the gateway of the word Tahuti, which helps you to be the scribe. Everyone can be a writer. It's all inside of us. And there's something special and unique about each one of us. So that's Tahuti.
I might do a whole separate live just on that clip. Let me back up. So y'all see the title of this channel is Relentless Pursuit of Purpose. I believe in purpose. I speak on purpose. I write on purpose. But purpose has become such a buzzword that no one really understands it. And the thing is, now I don't have to do it in the conscious community, but it works here too. If there's no meaning to life, then life has no meaning or purpose. And so you have to be able to ground an objective meaning, an objective telos. Telos is actually Greek for purpose. So what is the goal? If we can't identify a goal of life, and I say the ultimate goal is to know Christ and make him known. Jesus said in John 17:3 to know me is eternal life. So it's already begun. But that is it. Now, your unique purpose, how you specifically advance the kingdom of God on earth, that's a different thing. And that takes other things that I could work with people on and do some coaching on. But one of her flaws is she hasn't grounded where we're even seeking to get this understanding of purpose from. First, she told Charlemagne to look within. Oh, she's going to do it in the next clip. So look within yourself. And one of my gripes with many Eastern religions, especially like Hinduism and things of this nature, is if the answer's in me and I'm asking the question, clearly I ain't got it. It's got to be external to me. It's got to transcend me. And so this plays into the moral law. This plays into a lot of other things that people gloss over if you're not careful. That it sounds good, and people are shaking their head just like Sunday morning, right? Like, ooh, that's good, preach. But the problem is you can't ask the universe, because whoever created the universe is who you need to be asking. Whoever created space, time, and matter, who himself is spaceless, timeless, and immaterial, that's the source that you need to go to. But if you're going to make the universe your God, you haven't answered the question, and you haven't grounded the ability to even ask the question. So y'all know I could go all day on purpose, but she's saying stuff that sounds good. And this is why I say it sounds so very new age, even though Kemet is very old, which we're going to look at in a second. But regardless of the age of the ideas, there's nothing that they're attached to. They have, as they say, their feet firmly planted in midair. This sounds good. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you're discovering something. But in the end, you're just doing whatever you feel. Now, the other question is, when you ask the universe, since the universe is a material reality external to you, but your mind is a metaphysical reality. So how is the universe speaking to you? And if it was speaking to you, how would you know it was speaking to you? And what language would it be speaking? See, like we have to ground even the medium through which communication can take place. I'm speaking right now. Everyone can hear my words. There's a chat. People can read words. These are mediums through which communication can happen. If I knew how to do sign language, I'd do that. But the universe has no method to communicate to us at all. So what you're really doing is a self-manifestation of what you already think. Now, is she right? Yeah, we got to clean up our thoughts. Absolutely. Do we have to watch our words? Absolutely. That's it. The Bible says that too. So that's not off. The question is, does that make us God-like? And the answer is no. So I hope whoever's watching, if you do ascribe to any really conscious community, but especially the one we're dealing with tonight, just think it through. Take us to its logical conclusion. I'm a big believer in philosophy. As you said, Quinn, and I've been talking with a lot of people, like, we need to start teaching philosophy in high school. I mean, a mandatory class that you have to know the basic rules of logic. I don't care what belief system you are. The rules of logic apply to life. And we got people out here who sound so deep and sound so authoritative and speak with so much authority. But as Dinu showed us, facts don't, as Ben Shapiro said, facts don't care about your feelings. It is what it is. Now, people can disagree, but you got to disagree with me based on the facts that were presented, not based on opinion, not based on feeling, not based on likes. So I got a little hot there, but let's bring it back and let's talk about these gates and commit. Let me put these couple slides on the screen. You were gonna say something, Quinn?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think I've watched this interview like 3 times now, and there are still major portions of it that still got me confused. I mean, this is like at one point, she talks about your inner voice. She says, and whatever that is, whether that's Jehovah, whether that's God, whether that's yourself. And I was like, wait a minute. So we just taking the old country buffet approach to worldviews and spirituality now, and to your point, Alex, when she talks about the universe, the thing that comes to mind, kind of a silly, it's a little silly, but I mean, it really does expose the error within the worldview. It's like, okay, well, if you can communicate with the universe, well, then the next time you see a rock on the side of the road, just go up to the rock and ask the rock what your purpose is. Because apparently the rock is a part of the universe and the universe is talking to you. It's little things like this that, again, really require us to understand how to think. I mean, for people who are watching and may find her presentation somewhat compelling, I just echo Alex's sentiments of what he said. Think this through to its logical conclusion. I'm a part of conversations on a pretty regular basis, theologically and otherwise, where it's clear that individuals are not taking the opportunity to think things through to their logical conclusion. My pastor back home in Virginia, he would say, he said, if you want to know if something that you're saying makes sense, one way to understand if something that you're saying makes sense and is good for others, he said, just ask yourself, if other people were to do this, what would society look like? what would the world look like if we all just took the approach that, the universe, we just need to connect with the universe and we just need to talk to the universe. Some of us would be, out talking to waterfalls. Some of us would be, hugging trees. I mean, it would just be absolutely chaotic, philosophically speaking. And really, I mean, at the end of the day, because it would all be subjective, no one could check anyone. No one can tell anyone that they're wrong, which of course, has its own set of issues. But again, we really have to learn how to think. And when it comes to discipleship, this is crucial because it can't be, well, I know Jesus for myself and that's what matters. It's like, well, no, I mean, yeah, you know Jesus for yourself and I'm glad you do, but you need to know who Jesus is historically. You need to know who Jesus is, who he was and is objectively speaking, because telling your personal testimony and story is helpful. But someone can simply say, okay, well, that's just you. Yep. And then what are you going to say? There's very little apologetic value in just saying, well, this is my story and you should be compelled by my story. There are cases where that happens. However, we're talking about defending the faith. We're talking about trying to be persuade men and women with the gospel. We have to do so in an objective manner, and so we can't. This is why worldviews like this are very dangerous, for our witness and for evangelism and discipleship, because at the end of the day, it undermines the objectivity and it undermines the historicity, the credibility, and the truth of the God that we say we serve and who we proclaim to represent in the world.
Absolutely. Dina, you had something? Okay. I was gonna add on to that so many thoughts in my mind right now. She's making not just assumptions, but and not just leaps in error, but even the conclusions are faulty if, once again, we don't understand the purpose for why we're here in the first place, right? Is the goal of life to just be as healthy as possible? I mean, that is something I want. That is something everybody wants. And that is something that's not bad to want. But is that the goal of life? You see what I'm saying? And so when we look at scripture, one of the things, as you said, Quentin, that is an apologetic that I'll use it as I'm discipling somebody, but from a stage, I wouldn't use it as much, but except to say this, it gets reality correct. That's important. That's important with a worldview. When you look at, she wrote a book and she got all of the biology wrong. That's a problem. The Bible gets reality correct in the sense that it is correct in how it talks about the pain of life, the pain of emotions. It's correct in talking about the pain of physical ailments that Paul, he didn't have enough faith. He had the spirit, the thorn in his flesh that he asked him to God to take away. He said no. He had eye issues. He had we can go down the list of the different people who had ailments and issues and understand that they understood there was a bigger purpose to life than just their physical well-being. In fact, they all died as martyrs. They all died being chased out of cities, being beat, going through painful experiences. If that was all it was about, was their physical health, their well-being, they would have bowed out a long time ago. We wouldn't even know about it. But clearly they found a purpose that superseded the physical ailments and the physical persecutions that they had to endure in order to achieve that purpose. So we're not saying, hey, if this helps you lose some weight, do it. Do it. Just don't make it godlike. And that's a difference. Let me say this. Back to the first part I was saying. So if the universe communicates, there's questions we have to ask. Ask me questions. Not personally, but after you watch this, whoever's maybe doesn't think the same way, just ask yourself questions about the things I'm saying. And if you think I'm wrong, I'm cool with it. Let's talk about it. But how would the universe communicate? How would we know if the universe is talking or if it's just our conscience? How could we cross-reference whatever we hear the universe saying? And this is important. One of the things that sometimes atheists or non-believers will say, well, men wrote the Bible, people wrote the Bible. But you got to ask, what medium could God have communicated his truth to humanity through? He could have wrote in the sky, but then as they say theologically and philosophically, if God doesn't maintain a certain amount of hiddenness and his presence is too overwhelming, then it's not really our choice to come to him. Right? We're compelled beyond our capability or beyond our humanity that we can't deny him. And so our choice to love him or choice to know him is not really free at that point. So Blaise Pascal talked about this. J.P. Moreland talks about this. So actually writing becomes the best medium through which we can have access to him and to his nature and character and his essence without it being an overwhelming presence where we're compelled beyond our own volition to know or deny him. Okay. So if God communicated his heart, his character, his nature, his power to us in written form, then our prayers and what we receive in them could be cross-referenced and thereby adjudicated properly so that we could know if the answers we receive in prayer, good, bad, or indifferent, because he doesn't always say yes, were from God or just a self-manifestation or self-realization. In other words, when I'm praying, when we're praying, whatever I say or whatever I feel God is saying should already align up with scripture. And that's part of the stuff when we deal with the other things out here with Word of Faith or whoever. I'm coming back to the scripture to see if what you're saying aligns with that. I told all my students whenever I was teaching discipleship classes in church, go home and check me out. I'm gonna send you every scripture that I talk about, and I'm gonna email you my notes. If I made an error, if I got it wrong, tell me. I'm never gonna put myself over the scripture. Now, she keeps her foundation so nebulous that we can't ever cross-reference it. As you said, it's the old country buffet method, right? I don't know where to go to cross-reference. Like, I got a library back here, but your book's ain't out. I mean, your actual book is out there, but you know what I'm trying to say? You got so many sources that are not even aligned in themselves. You got competing worldviews that you're appealing to for whatever thing you want to say at that moment. And that's problematic, especially when they're mutually exclusive. Christianity and Islam cannot both be true, right? So that's just one example. I'm not saying she's saying that. I'm just saying that that's an example of it. We have to do better as a people, especially as African Americans living here. We got to be better at differentiating and adjudicating between truth claims and taking them, as you said, to their logical conclusion to see what really holds water. Amen.
Amen. I don't know. I'm still learning about Kemeticism, Kemetic spirituality, but just a couple things. It seems to be a belief system that's very steeped in symbolism and a lot of abstract, almost like what did I read? There's the sacred and symbolism. And I think that when you approach important matters like this, when you approach spirituality from this aspect of abstract and non-concrete and subjectivism, you're going to run into problems because everyone has their own view. Everyone has their own interpretation of what a symbol could mean. It's just very subjective. What you were saying, Alex, it's not grounded in something that's immovable. And so a lot of what the interview entailed, obviously it comes from her worldview, which is Kemeticism. And so again, the parts where she's talking about diet and eating healthy, and even her suggestions for what to eat for certain things, that is all good. But I think, as you said, close to the top of the show, that when that is grounded in such a nebulous and abstract belief system, I think that's when you run into problems.
Yeah. Amen to that. All right, this is the last clip, y'all, and then we want to close with neo-pagan type thing.
I also say this is kind of off topic, but I wanted to mention this because when she was talking about the sun food and the sun food, and she was talking about the green, she was talking about chlorophyll, and she was saying, you know, to get our, she was naming some foods to get our oxygen from. I just want to say this, that we don't get our oxygen from food, okay? We don't get our oxygen from ingestion. We get our oxygen from respiration, okay? We have to breathe to get it in.
Yes. Thank you, doctor.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's interesting as you say that. I remember my daughter's 9. She must have been 7. And they were learning about photosynthesis and all that at 7. Trees give us oxygen. We give them.
If anything, you would have to eat the air around the plant, right? That's what you would have to eat. But you don't eat air, you breathe air. So
I do.
don't do it in public.
All right, last thing. So here, well, you'll see.
Some final words, Miss Sacred Woman?
Yes. This is a prayer. And it's prayer. This is the prayer that we say as we go from gateway to gateway to gateway.
Just and bow our heads?
We can go within. Okay. Like you said, we're going to go within. Yeah. And there's a prayer for the women and there's a prayer for the men. Do you have that prayer?
No, I don't have it with me.
Okay, you could just.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, you say your prayer first and I'll say, because it's really about the balance. Women healing themselves in a bubble, it's not going to work, right? Man healing himself in a bubble, it's not going to work. If you have a couple or if you have yourself, heal yourself so you can attract a healthy relationship. And for the men, you heal yourself so you can attract a healthier woman. We're giving up on each other.
The charge for the men is, arrange for me the way. May I renew myself.
May I renew myself.
May I become strong.
May I become strong.
Arrange for me the way.
Arrange for me the way.
May I renew myself.
May I renew myself.
May I become strong.
May I become strong.
For the women, Sacred Spirit, hold me near. I'm praying above you, below you, and inside your heart. So just take a deep breath and breathe in and out as you receive it. Sacred Spirit, hold me near, close to your bosom. Protect me from all harm and fear beneath the stones of life. Direct my steps in the right way as I journey through this vision. Sacred Spirit, surround me in your most absolute perfect light. Anoint me in your sacred purity. Give me peace and divine insight. Bless me, truly bless me as I share this sacred life. Teach me, Sacred Spirit, to be in tune with the universe. Teach me how to heal with the inner and outer elements of air, fire, water, and earth.
Well,
I didn't hear it the first time. As you said, the buffet thing, Quentin. Teach me, Sacred Spirit, to be in touch with the universe. But I thought the universe was where we're going to get the answer.
Well, so here's the other thing. Like, I thought that you were looking within.
And
so she says, arrange for me the way, and then says something with regards to himself. Help me to renew myself. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, which is it? Like, who are you praying to? Who or what are you praying to? And we just start there. What are their properties? Are they personal, impersonal? If they're impersonal, then how on earth can they grant access or responses to your prayers? I mean, again, very, very confusing. Not very coherent at all. I mean, all kinds of logical issues there. And again, like, so something to share to show. I was working on so for some of y'all know I'm a mechanic, right? Work on cars, fix cars. Well, every once in a while I have some interesting stories to tell. This is one of them. So I'm working on a customer's car, and I have to get in the car and cut the car on in order to cycle it while I'm working on it or whatever. And the radio comes on. Most people leave their radio on when they cut their car off. So radio comes on and there's all of this stuff about, like positive thoughts and, if you think a certain way, it'll manifest a certain thing in your life and so on and so forth. And I was like, oh, okay, let's just turn that off. But I was just like, wow, like this type of thinking that she's espousing, I mean, it's literally like the B-side of what we hear in like Word of Faith circles, and what we hear in New Age circles. And it's funny, like cats who kind of roll in these more comedic, materialistic, like even Black atheism, where they do this kind of weird thing where they kind of hijack Kemet and drain it of all of its spiritual properties and make it seem as if it's all just, mathematics and numbers. They do a similar thing where instead of, okay, it's not all about name it and claim it, it's, well, I'm just going to do this myself. I'm not going to appeal to a deity because the deity is me. And so, people will bang on those within Christendom and Christian circles. But quite frankly, you're doing the same exact thing, except instead of it being God, it's you. And so we have to, again, just be careful, folks. Be very careful. Like it's real slick, it's real sneaky, yeah. But it all leads to the same path, down the same road.
Oh, go ahead, Dino.
Okay, I just wanted to say that, yes, it's very work-based because, again, I'm just starting to learn it. But even the whole concept of Mayat, it's very works-based, right? You have the 42 confessions that you, and Queen Afua mentioned this about getting up and praying from the hours of 4 p.m. to 6 a.m. You're at your heightened spiritual state then, I guess, to receive. But it's very works-based in terms of, you get up at the start of your day and you say, I will do this. And at the end of your day, before you lay down to rest, you say, I did not. Or, yeah, I think that's what they say, I did not. And so this idea of my eternity or my future, I don't know what their eschatology is, but I'll say this, that my future is dependent on what I do, what I don't do and what I do. And it's not dependent on anyone else. In the Christian worldview, it's dependent on Jesus Christ and what he does. In this worldview, it's all dependent on what I do. The whole idea of keeping your heart as light as a feather based on the deeds that you do. And so,
yeah, that's called a to-do list, by the way, for those that are not aware. I have one. I do it every day. But anyway, it's not that spiritual, I can promise you. I try to get it all done in one day, and it don't always happen. There's some practical things that she gets right because they're practical things that we should all do. And I'm going to keep harping on that because that's where they should stay. They're practical things. With this final prayer, humanity has demonstrated that the answer is not within us. If we ain't learned nothing since our entrance into this earth, the answer is not in us. It's been demonstrated sociologically, anthropologically, scientifically, as Dino just broke down the body. Like, our origins are from a mind, they're from a person external to us, and it's best for us to seek him, not it, as in the universe or whichever spirit she was talking about. Looking within also, as you said, it places the success and failure on fallen subjects. Now, I don't know, as you said, Komet's understanding of sin, or I don't know that, but I do know we're fallen. So we'll just start from that point. Whenever the failure or success is works-based, and every other religion, every other worldview is works-based, from Islam to Buddhism, Hinduism, everything is works-based. And when you live in such a worldview, it is unsustainable. In fact, take back to the Old Testament. Now, that wasn't purely works-based, but it was more works-based, I'll say, at least in the practical outworking in a lot of the instances. And so the reason, I'm gonna get some heat on this from a different camp, the reason Jesus came to fulfill the law is because it's unsustainable, because if you break one, you broke them all. There's freedom here. The truth provides freedom. The truth of Christianity provides freedom. And that's what we're trying to bring. We're not trying to make this about knocking down Afua, knocking down Kemet, but there's no freedom in it. And as we've kind of seen tonight, there's no truth in it. Let me show this slide, and then I want to show some of the components of Christianity where we do talk about, and the Bible does talk about that healing that can come, because we do believe that can happen, but it has to happen based on Jesus' terms. So in the book Urban Apologetics, if y'all don't already have it, you're late. In chapter on Kemet, Vince Bantu says this: the Shajah, and he's gracious to use the Kemetic words for these terminologies. The Shajah, or Bible, attests to several central figures who spent time in Kemet, Egypt, including Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. The common theory among Kemetic communities, therefore, is that these figures and those under their influence copied their belief system from traditional Kemetic religion. Kemetic communities further allege that aspects of scripture, such as the Ten Commandments, virgin birth, visit of the Magi, identity of Joseph, baptism of Yeshua, Jesus, crucifixion, and resurrection, are all reflected in traditional Kemetic mythology. Apologists can contest this copy theory not only on the grounds of its historical inaccuracy, but more importantly for its suppositional inappropriateness. Not only are many of the alleged copies between the Bizrap, the Gospel, and Kemetic religion unsubstantiated fabrications, but this entire line of thought is a modern Western augmentation that's alien to the Kemetic tradition this religion's practitioners claim to uphold. In other words, when you look at the Kemetic writings up to modern times, last, probably 100, 150 years, they don't have any of the things that we're seeing today from Kemet. Keep that same energy, right?
Look, Doc, come on, man. Look, we see this all the time, like talking about the influence of white, European, Western Enlightenment and post-Enlightenment thinking and ideology on how individuals approach and interrogate history. Like this idea of copyist, this idea of trying to demythologize scripture and religion, and essentially trying to push spirituality and religion out of the marketplace, as it were, the political marketplace, is purely white, Western, European, post-enlightenment type of thinking. It is not inherent to it's not orthodoxy, it certainly is it, and this is it. I guess I'm defending Kemet now, right? Like this isn't even Kemet either, Like, this is not how they roll. Like these figures that they worship, they were actual figures. They weren't merely symbols, right? For something else. Like that's purely what white Western men in Germany were thinking and doing, because they were in many ways anti-Semite, just anti-religion altogether. But that's a whole nother discussion. So.
Absolutely, but it plays in. So it is important though, because anyone who is involved in Kemet needs to understand that the wool is being pulled over your eyes too, and not by us. We're trying to say, like, if you do your research, this is what it was. So the last quote from Dr. Bantu, he says, Kemetic communities often argue that Christians copied Kemetic religion, and that Kemetic religion itself was completely original, a religious system. However, Kemet is among several other ancient societies that developed religious systems that influence one another. Now, when we compare Nasrawi, which is Christian beliefs, to those of ancient Kemetic, Indian or Mesopotamian civilizations, we find that the Nasrawi faith is far more distinct. Kemetic civilization is one of the oldest human civilizations on the earth, with evidence of hunter-gatherer societies stretching back to the 10th millennium BC, and a unique religious system that's attested in pyramid texts and hieroglyphic accounts as early as 2400 BC. Other ancient societies that developed independently of Kemet, and around the same time are India, Sumer, Assyria, and Babylonia. The religious systems that developed in these ancient civilizations are much more similar to one another than any of them are to the Bizrat. In other words, if you want to look for similarities, it ain't with Christianity. Now, there are some similarities with Kemet and other things, but it's not with Christianity. And ancient Kemet people knew that. They weren't confused about it. We're confused today on both sides of the aisle. So I want to close with this, because we need to come back to, okay, so Alex, Quentin, you're saying that this is not the magic potion. This is not the secret sauce. This is not the magic healing thing. So what does the Bible have to say about this? Well, the Bible does talk about healing. And I believe in physical healing. We'll talk about that. Spiritual healing is what it talks most about. And that's what all of us need. This is what we all need to obtain salvation, and even through the process of sanctification thereafter. And I put a couple in here from my Word of Faith family, that these are talking about spiritual healing. 1 Peter 2:24, Isaiah 53:5. We are healed by his stripes spiritually. We did a whole live a couple months ago with Adam and Norman and Chris Featherstone. All right, let's talk about physical healing. Does that happen? Can it happen? Absolutely. We got Naaman. We got Jesus healing people. We got Peter and Paul healing people. I didn't put those up. But this is not an on-demand healing. Okay, this is not something that you can either drink the right juices and pray the right prayers and get. And I'm talking to Kemet, and I'm talking to Word of Faith. This is strictly, as Dinu said before, this is God's decision. We pray, we believe, and he knows better than us because he's omniscient and we're not. I'm not going to go any farther than that tonight because that's a whole nother live. Emotional, mental healing. This is Mental Health Month. I think, is it this month or next month? This month? Okay. So speaking of Chris, he's a psychologist. My dad was a psychologist. I believe in mental health, right? And it's important. And so there's a natural component and there's a spiritual component. And God has a way, because he's actual, he's an ontic reality of healing our mind, healing our heart, healing our emotion. And we don't have to look within. We have to look to him. So I'll say this last one. He might say no. He might say wait. Once again, this is not something that we can demand from the universe. We can't demand it from God. We can't kind of tricked our way into attaining these things that we want, and that we want for good reason. Both my parents have passed away. My dad passed away, started with sickle cell. It led to gastrointestinal issues when I was 11. My mom passed away a couple of years ago. She had eye issues, an autoimmune issue. Like you said, when she went to every doctor known of every type, doctors I didn't even know what the word was, rheumatologists and all the other ologists. And they can't figure it out because doctors have little to no idea about autoimmune issues at all. That's why HIV is still around. One of the reasons. So am I to believe that either God didn't love her, or am I to believe that she didn't drink the right juices? Like, come on, we gotta do better than that. And we gotta be more honest with the reality that we suffer and things happen. But what both of them never did is recant on their faith in God. They were more bold in their faith than I am. And so just like with the apostles and disciples, we can be strong. We can be in love with God. We can be in love with Jesus, and we can stick to truth. And we don't have to go looking for special, formulas and special methodologies that we get to control. And that's really what it boils down to, if we want to be honest. I can control this stuff that I drink. I can control getting up at 4 a.m. every day. I can control saying this prayer when I enter into this gate. Or that now I get to control everything. But can you? And what if you can't? So I'm done off of that. Any parting words?
I would say, as the old hymn says, my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. Amen. Not on no concoction, no potion, no no hoodoo, no voodoo, no juices, none of that. All of that stuff has value, as Paul says, I believe in First Corinthians. He said, there is value in physical exercise and physical taking care of yourself and that kind of thing. But ultimately, those things are not where we place or should place our hope. And so, my prayer for those who are watching, who may be influenced or who found themselves somewhat compelled by what Queen Afua said, that you would, one, come to know the truth, that is the person Jesus Christ, and that you would ultimately find satisfaction, that you would find hope, healing, and purpose in him and in his kingdom, and not anyone or anything else. And the church said, amen.
All right. Well, I just want to thank Quentin. Thank you, D. New. Man, if y'all came late, please go back and watch the medical breakdown. That alone shuts all this down, to be honest with you. Like all the other stuff, the philosophical and theological stuff we try to add on, that just bolsters the case. But facts don't lie. Not that what we said wasn't facts, but she brought diagrams and everything. Now, thank y'all. We went a little longer, but I wanted to make sure we got it all out. And I pray it bless you. I pray it helps you. If there's somebody that you know is into this stuff and is following her, I looked at the thing today. It has 740,000 views or something like that. 20-something thousand likes. So she got a following. And I'm not here to clout chase or anything like that. We're about truth. We're just about the truth. All right. So I hope that's clear. I love y'all. We love y'all. And we will see you next time. Peace.